the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, ArcMap Performance Best Management Practices. In this episode, we'll be talking about broken data links and how to fix them. Some projects, over time, the data sources that are located within them are moved. They could be deleted. They might be renamed. The database might have changed, might have a version change, etc. All of these will break the link in your ArcMap project and cause that layer to fail. And you can tell this by the famous red exclamation point. And this goes back to the beginning of ArcGIS Desktop. And now more than ever, these broken data links cause ArcMap projects to come to a crawl. It is the number one biggest performance degradation that we have found. And to demonstrate this, I have a project. These are A&R lands infrastructure pieces or items, bridges, culverts, fences, etc. And you'll see this project is dated back to 2012. So, consider projects that are done in plans that might have a 5-year revisit cycle, like some management plans and believe the long-range management plans are 5 years coming back, and inevitably there's going to be a broken data link. I'll just say that now. And how much does this ultimately affect the performance of a map? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this project 5 years ago and see how long it takes to open. Okay, I pretty much gave up on this opening, but the truth is opening this project took 32 minutes. So how many people out there are waiting 30 plus minutes for ArcMap projects to open? Very few. So a lot of the phone calls I'll get from users who are complaining that an ArcMap project won't open simply aren't waiting long enough for them to open. Now, is this acceptable? Absolutely not. But the issue at hand here is that we need to be patient enough to allow this project to open so that we can fix it and come back to it so that it doesn't take as long to open any longer. And how do we do that? So over here in my layers list, you'll notice fence, gate, kiosk, and sign all have the red exclamation point. And this means that their feature class or shapefile are not being found in the system. And to look at data sources up in the top of the table of contents, you can actually list your layers by their source. And in here, it might be easy for you to distinguish if something's missing in a particular spot, say on a network drive. So you had something mapped to your UMI files when it's actually now in your program's wide drive. So those would be easy to spot in this data source view here. But since this is pointing directly to our SDE default, which is our enterprise and our GIS geodatabase, these are all still pointing to the geodatabase. Well, what does that mean? If these still have a red exclamation point, it's in SDE, what could that possibly mean? Well, what actually happened here is that we consolidated some feature classes, like fence and gate are now simply called barriers, kiosks and signs as well. So what do we do in this case? And I believe the best management practice for doing this is simply removing the entire layer, especially if it's a layer within our T layer files library. And we can do that by choosing add data and going to our T layer files layer file library and finding these layers within that. And we can always be assured 99% of the time that when you access a layer file from our layer file library, it's pointing to an up-to-date resource. So even accessing our T layer files folder took a few minutes to open, and I believe it's still because of these broken data links in here. So I'm going to go in here we're going to look in the theme for the resource for which we're trying to add. In this case, we're looking at facilities, buildings, and structures. And you'll notice our A&R lands infrastructure inventory. So I'm going to click on that, add it, and wait for this to load. And another 5 minutes, and our layer file has been added to the project. So as you can see, we now have barriers in here, bridges, buildings, culverts, dams, all the same features as our last layer file group. So what I'm going to do, let's remove that. Let's get rid of all of that, including the broken data layers. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to save this project as an updated project that now has data links that are not broken. Give this a new name, update it. So I'm going to save it to my desktop, and we'll just call this A&R Lands Infrastructure. So this is going right to my desktop. See, we're all set, we're done. So I'm going to close this project. Now that it's saved, it's now on my desktop, and I'm going to see how long this takes. So right now it's 12:46. Project is now opening, and it is 12:50. So all in all, it took 4 minutes to open the project. Full disclosure, I did pause. I wasn't going to make everyone wait the full 4 minutes for this to open. And that could have a few reasons why it took even 4 minutes to open. And I believe that it's because I'm accessing this project over Wi-Fi using my laptop. If I'm connected directly to an Ethernet to A&R, I would imagine that time is probably cut in half. But the main takeaway here is that we went from this project taking 32 minutes to open with about 4 broken data links to 4 minutes with no broken data links. So if you have a project that has a lot of layers in it, I know that some people like to manage their ArcMap projects as one single project and simply add data to it. You can imagine how volatile those projects are. Resources move, things change, data layers change names, and that has an absolute direct impact on the performance of ArcMap. So in my opinion, I believe it's a lot easier to create much simpler projects in the event that if a server resource is changed, going back in those projects to edit those and fix those are easily managed. I can only imagine how long a project is going to take to open if there's 100 data layers in this ArcMap project and half of them are broken data links because something changed. So in the event that a shapefile changes, you can always have the option to double-clicking a particular layer, opening up the layer's properties, and setting the source manually. So like I mentioned in those cases where you might have a shapefile, say in your UMI files, well, you can go in, double-click, choose data source, and then use your folder connections to go back and fix those. That will also fix that broken data link issue. So 2 things here: managing more simple projects and making sure that broken data links are fixed. Having the patience to wait for an ArcMap project to open fully is key. So even if it takes an hour to open, make sure that you open it completely and then go in and make sure that those data links are fixed. If you have any questions, you can always send an MXD to ArcGIS, either myself, Eric.Engstrom, it's ERIK.Engstrom @vermont.gov, or through Ryan Knox, Ryan.Knox@vermont.gov. We'll be happy to help you get those projects back up and running so that they do not take multiple hours to open. So again, my name is Eric Engstrom with VT A&R GIS, and I hope you find this useful.